Ambitious budget games are interesting. Something about developers stretching every dollar to make these huge, unconventional ideas come to life through their products keeps gaming interesting for me. Of course, we all know that most AAA studios rarely go out of their comfort zone when releasing games, for fear of scaring off their core audience, which would be your average gamer. So they play it safe. They follow the trends so that they know what they make will sell. Unless they make a huge boo-boo, this works out most of the time. But as a weirdo gamer, I am not fond of the idea of 50+ battle royale games being on the market that are all almost the same. It feels like every time a game becomes a massive hit, the whole game industry goes into the dark ages, trying to emulate what that game did to get popular in the first place instead of trying to make the next big trend or next new thing. I mean, I understand from a business perspective it's practically free money, but it leaves me unsatisfied with most games with mainstream appeal. And that's not to sound contrarian or snobbish in any way, it's just where my interests line up. This is where ambitious budget games come in. These are the games that save me from the mundanity of the mainstream gaming industry. Now, ambitious games as a whole are always welcome. I love to see them with a huge budget such as The Last of Us or the more recent Cyberpunk 2077, but the ones with lower budgets tend to be a tad more interesting to me. Often with a lower budget comes lower financial risk and more creative freedom given to the dev team, which sometimes results in unique games that become sleeper hits or garner cult followings. Two examples of these ambitious budget games are Katamari Damacy and Deadly Premonition, both of which happen to be among my favorite games of all time. Another one is Disaster Report for the PlayStation 2, or SOS The Final Escape for all my European friends. This is a game I've heard spoken about every once in a while for the longest time, and I've never actually played it myself. So to kick off 2021, I decided to make this the first game I play. So Disaster Report begins with the protagonist, Keith Helms, riding a train into Stiver City to start his new job as an editor for the Town Crier newspaper. Little does he know that several natural disasters are coming to fuck his day up. Starting off with an earthquake that puts not only the train out of commission, but the whole bridge it rides on too. Now Keith has to find a way to get rescued from this island along with any of the survivors he meets along the way, all while dodging buildings, climbing out of hell, and pestering people while they take a number 2. You know, everyday dangers. There might also be a conspiracy to uncover on the side, but I assure you it's super ridiculous. With all this in mind, the main objective of the game is to explore Stiver Island in order to find a way off of it. You come across many rescue teams, but often miss your chance to get saved by way of helicopters leaving before you get to them, or this guy stopping his boat to allow a building to fall on him, which I don't get because he has more than enough time to drive away, but whatever. You go through a variety of different locations around the city, ranging from sports stadiums to large shopping malls, using all sorts of methods to go through or around the different obstacles you come across. The controls are pretty simple to get the hang of, but overall still kinda suck whenever you need to do any sort of platforming or precise movements. It's a struggle. You have a run button that doubles as a jump whenever you're close to an edge, which led me to send Keith jumping into the abyss many times by accident. There's also a brace button for when those aftershocks get a little too much for you, or when you don't want to fly off a boat and drown. The camera is a thing you can control. Sort of. The only thing you can do with it is force it to look in the direction Keith is facing, which is okay most of the time, but this game would have really benefited from allowing the player to freely control the camera. As you would imagine, while constantly running around a huge city, dodging falling buildings, and performing other demanding tasks, Keith gets quite thirsty doing pretty much anything other than breathing. And you can tell how thirsty he is by looking at the quench bar, which shows how many quench points you have. Believe it or not, all around Stiver Island there are water spouts. At these water spouts you can drink water to refill your quench bar, refill any water bottles you have, and save your game. Though you should be careful as some of them have a chance of having contaminated water in them, so always read before you drink. A lot of them are positioned so close to each other that you could probably get away with carrying only one small water bottle instead of wasting inventory space to carry 3 bottles throughout most of the game like me. Yeah, item management is a thing. You start off with a small bag, but over time you'll find bigger ones that allow you to carry more things. And by golly, does this game have a lot of things to pick up. Most items aren't actually needed to complete the game, and a lot of them are used for crafting, allowing you to make a variety of new items that are still not needed to complete the game but do make survival a lot easier. For example, you can find a powdered juice packet in a convenience store and mix it with a water bottle you have to create the quenchiest drink known to man. You can also craft items that allow you to reach different areas in the city and meet new characters. I wouldn't be able to show you any of the optional stuff because I totally didn't do any crafting throughout the game and stuck to the main route, just know that it's there. This game provides the player with a bunch of choices, and a lot of decisions you make will affect how the game will end. There are 7 endings in total, and which one you get depends on which of the 2 girls you pick to be your waifu and how well you treat them. I chose Karen because I wanted to save her dog, but I don't really care about her. I totally did not get the true ending for her either because apparently you're supposed to give her water often and I didn't even realize you could do that. Luckily, dehydration only kills Keith on this fictional island. There are also bad endings that stem from the player being selfish. Most of these have to do with leaving the girl you're with for dead so that you can get rescued. And I gotta say, it was pretty tempting, but somehow I kept myself in line. Disaster Report is definitely a game that requires multiple playthroughs just to get everything out of it. Branching paths are everywhere, there are hidden compasses to collect as well, and different dialogue choices that reveal more about the side characters while allowing the player to roleplay as Keith. You can play as a genuinely caring guy who wants to see everyone safe, or play as a huge dick because we all know how fun that is. You can totally miss out on side characters the game has depending on the choices you make, so although this game only takes about 5 hours to reach the end, someone could easily put in 30 hours and still have stuff left to do. And I thought Resident Evil games had high replayability. Although the game is made to be played multiple times, I can't imagine it getting super stale, as it tries to switch up things so it's not just a bunch of earthquakes and buildings falling. Though those things do happen a lot, Irem did try their best. You can be scavenging for resources in abandoned buildings or platforming over a pit of fire, maybe taking down a helicopter with a water hose or failing to sneak past a bazooka man in a mall. My favorite thing to do is to collect hats and other useless clothing items that are purely cosmetic and make you look silly in cutscenes. And speaking of cutscenes, they are very good.
You know too much. And I hate people that know too much. You're persistent, and you must not live. Ready to die for me?
I don't know if you've noticed by now, but I pick all the games I cover by how cheesy the cutscenes are. Not really, but there does seem to be a trend. You see, the writing is very silly and not intentionally. There are some very questionable motives and character backgrounds in this game that end up giving us some hilarious lines, such as, "The government killed my family," and "Don't take pictures of me without asking, I'll sue you," says the old man who is currently dying. All of these stupid lines happen to be delivered perfectly due to the fact that the voice actors get way into their roles, and not in a good way. The plot tries so hard to be serious, but every other aspect of the game is anything but. I have absolutely no issues with the plot, cutscenes, characters, or the concept of the game. Nothing is really solid, and it's a bit quirky, but I can dig it. Now, the things like the not so good camera and platforming segments that are a bit more annoying than they need to be due to the awkward way Keith controls. It's not too much of a big deal, but I've fallen off way too many times for this to not irk me a little bit. Also, this game has a buttload of trial and error stuff in it. Like, how am I supposed to know that the ceiling would collapse as soon as I get out the train? Or that this desk was gonna push me off of the building? Elevators falling as soon as you grab the item in it? Cool. Due to these controls and trial and error aspects, you will spend a sizable chunk of playtime redoing set pieces because the first time around you are pretty much scouting, looking for anything that could potentially yeet you to your death, and retrying over and over again until you know which bars to walk on or which side of the stairs you need to walk up so that you don't die and have to restart. And don't even get me started on the stealth segments towards the end. I mean, they're not bad, I just hate them in every game. These are the issues that keep Disaster Report from being a great game. For me. I have to make it clear that although this game was creative at the time, it is very mediocre when you look at it from an objective perspective, or as objective as video games can be. But for me, Disaster Report has a lot of the stuff I enjoy. Things like subpar voice acting, silly writing, a diverse cast of characters, and unconventional gameplay. All that stuff makes Disaster Report an interesting game to me, and maybe it might be up your alley too. So I don't know, give it a try. I definitely need to do a few more playthroughs of it and maybe try the other games in the series. That's all I have to say about Disaster Report. You can go now,